Good afternoon and welcome. I'd like to welcome you to the 11th Annual Silver Circle Honors. I'm Steve Novak, President of the Chicago Midwest Chapter. I'm so happy to see so many of you here today. Every year when we do this show, we go out of our way to make sure that the Packers aren't playing at home. This year we went even further. We made sure that the Packers weren't playing at all. And for a lot of you, we made sure that the Brewers, unfortunately, were not playing at all. I'm sorry. Coming from Chicago, I'm really sorry. I wanted the Brewers going. If they were going to beat the Cubs, I wanted them to go all the way. But having said that, we're going to talk about the event at hand. We gathered today to celebrate those who have made significant contributions to Milwaukee and Madison broadcasting for more than a quarter of a century. And we celebrate our colleagues' hard work, many talents, and commitment to excellence. Before we start, I'd like to say that we'd like to send our deepest condolences to the family of Tom Hooper, a 2010 Silver Circle honoree from WITI, who passed away after spending more than 35 years in the business. And our thoughts and prayers go out to his family. Prior to today, 57 local television professionals have been inducted into the Wisconsin Silver Circle. I'm pleased to tell you that we have 20 of these past honorees with us here today. I'd like to ask them to stand and remain standing until every name has been called. And if you can please hold your applause until the end, we won't delay this program. And I will also tell you, I am going to try really hard not to botch the names, but I don't promise anything. James Angeli, Sean Downs, Joyce Garbasiak, Mike Gusha, Daniel Jones, Dennis Kraus, Marianne Lazarski, Tony Lucas, Kathy Michaelby, Dan Needles, Jim Paschke, Ted Perry, Tom Pippins, Renee Raffelli, Gary Reistad, Sally Severson, Tim Van Boren, Ken Wainscott, Joanne Williams, and Jim Wilson. It's now my honor and privilege to introduce today's MC. She's a respected Milwaukee journalist who has worked for a couple of local television stations and in Chicago. She currently hosts Milwaukee Public Television's award-winning Black Nouveau program and is a 2009 Silver Circle honoree. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to introduce Joanne Williams.
So thank you very much, Steve. Thank you all for coming today. You know, Steve was very gracious and asked me to help him make sure he got all the names pronounced correctly. However, the ones that were a little shaky, he didn't ask me about. So I thought, you got those. Next year, Steve will go through the whole list. Yes, my name is Joanne Williams. And as we all know, when you're doing television news, you go out on the street and you meet lots of people, and since I don't do day-to-day news anymore, people will come up to me and they'll say, "Oh, you're still at it." And I'll tell them, "Yes, I'm still at it. I'm at PBS now, and I host Black Nouveau." And they will say, or else they'll say, "Oh, I know you. I know you." We've all had this experience. "I know you. Your name is Joyce." And I'll say, "No." They'll say, "Yes, it is. Your name is Joyce." And I'll say, "No, you're thinking of Joyce Garbasiak." Yeah, that's it." I'll say, "No, Joyce is taller and blonde." And they'll say, "Oh, okay." Sometimes if they're really, really insistent, I will just say, "Yes, I'm Joyce," and just keep right on going. Joyce, do you ever get asked if you're me? So that, you know, that brings your ego down to ground level very quickly. and when they still say you're still doing it. So this year, it's full of surprises. This is a year full of surprises for all of us. Who would have believed that we would have just covered the first events and games in a brand new Milwaukee Bucks arena, the Fiserv Forum, and would be looking forward to the demise of the BMO Harris Bradley Center, a building that many of us covered from inception and now construction and soon demolition. Isn't that hard to believe? However, I want to say, and I think you will join me in saying thank you, Lloyd and Jane Bradley Pettit, for what they did for Milwaukee. Yes. Who would have thought we'd be spending so much time talking about midterm elections? And who wants to talk anymore about midterm elections? Let's just get it over with and move on to something else, like the next elections. And personally, I am just happy at all to be here this afternoon, and very grateful that I am. So thank you very much for letting me come and MC today's program, and I hope you enjoy the show. You're going to hear a lot about sports this afternoon. You've already heard a little bit about it. I had a really good reference in my speech about who'd have thought we'd be covering a World Series. Yeah, who'd have thought it? Never mind. We span different eras in today's program. We have a lineup of honorees from a sports anchor who covered everything from bowling to Vince Lombardi. Another sports anchor more familiar with Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers. We'll honor a sports photographer who has been an eyewitness to some of Wisconsin's biggest games over the last decades. And we're also honoring an engineering pioneer and a trailblazing photojournalist who's been on the front lines of some of the biggest stories in the state of Wisconsin in the last many years. This year's honorees excelled in this highly competitive business and all-consuming business, and we pause here to thank them for sharing their professionalism and their many talents with us. Today we celebrate their countless achievements and their humanity. When we look at who should get the Silver Circle, we look at what they've done professionally. We also look at what they've done outside of the job. Everybody here has also benefited their community, not just their job. So we say thank you for that. As Steve said, we want to recognize the passing of a 2010 Silver Circle honoree, Tom Hooper, who passed over the weekend, who made a great impact on television news in Milwaukee. But let's get started with this year's honorees. Our first Silver Circle inductee is Kent Aschenbrenner, whom I know from 2 television stations, right? He's being introduced by George Kasdorf, the 1917 and 2017 Wisconsin Silver Circle honoree, Tony Lucas. Tony, George, come on up.
By the way, I'm Tony, that's George.
Yeah, well, a sports thing. I remember when the Brewers were minor leagues, the 8th and Chambers, Orchard Field. We did baseball April 1948.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and congratulations to all of you Silver Circle inductees, as your contribution to our industry is well appreciated, and this acknowledgement for you guys today is well deserved. A year ago, I was humbled to receive this honor and privilege to have as my presenter my dear friend and colleague, Kent Aschenbrenner. So now for Kent Aschenbrenner. And first meeting him 43 years ago my first thoughts were, wow, this guy's got a name and a half. And how do I pronounce this name? It's easy now after so many years of working with him, and yeah, I can actually spell it now. However, it wasn't always that way, but I readily learned to deal with this different name and this very different person. Yes, different in that he had this sense about being confident about himself and eliciting confidence from others for the work that he was doing and anything that he was involved in. I noticed this right away from Kent, and honestly, Kent, I thought you were a little cocky at first. But I soon realized that this persona was genuine and well applied as far as getting things done. It is this aspect that has proven to be a great asset in Kent's career as I've worked with him, and in his life as we've literally grown up together in the broadcast business and with our respective families. This is one sharp engineer. He gets it done. It's solid, it's well researched, deployed, documented, tested, and it's reliable. And often in the process of this, he's a pain in the, I'm not going to say it. But he is so on with every detail in his work and his projects and his initiatives. And this is ultimately why our audience can turn on any media device now and it's just there. It is this Kent Aschenbrenner type of approach that makes our industry the perpetual platform that has become now and into the future. So everyone, I'm presenting to you today here a person of great professionalism, of community, and of family. He is a broadcaster and key essential component to the industry's core. He's a Civil Air Patrol pilot, and he applies his love for flying and utilizes the skies to serve our community. He is family. To Barb, Emily, and Heidi, to John and the entire family, we appreciate Kent's sharing of family values as he does so well. And Kent and I were just talking about this this morning. We've talked about this a lot. And we strongly feel that the key to anyone's success are the true mentors of our lives that share their experience to teach and guide us. Kent and I have had the amazing a privilege to work alongside a foundation of engineering discipline in the form of a fellow WTMJ engineer. On December 3rd, 1947, WTMJ signed on as the first television station in the state of Wisconsin, and also becoming the 15th station to broadcast commercially in the United States. A member of the engineering team for this memorable event was a gentleman named George Kasdorf. It is that same George Kasdorf that has served as an invaluable mentor for Kent and for so many of us in the fulfillment of our engineering careers. So today I'm very proud to have as a joint presenter for Kent, George Kasdorf. So now let's enjoy the following snapshot of Kent, his career, and his life.
Kent Aschenbrenner.
Kent Aschenbrenner.
There's 13 letters in that last name.
Spent a lot of time in the trenches with Kent.
I mean, you name it, Kent's been there.
When he says something, you know that there's a lot of background behind it. I don't think he spouts off about himself a lot.
I can't imagine a better colleague to have done terrific work with.
Good friend.
He is loyal, smart.
He's like a living legacy kind of guy.
He just takes care of business.
For those that have not been in today's TMJ4, it is an older building. Kent knows it better than anybody else. And I often say that Kent is, there's there's the bodies that are buried in the basement of today's TMJ4. Kent's probably buried a few of them. Don't put that in there.
He is the building. Kent Aschenbrenner is WTMJ TV and WTMJ Radio. He is 720 East Capitol Drive. His life is on these walls.
He's part of the fabric of WTMJ.
What Kent does well is he does a lot behind the scenes, but he doesn't toot his horn about it. He just gets it done.
And so often in our industry, we focus on the people in front of the camera. It's important for us to recognize those that have done years and years of great service, in particular to this station, and Kent is that example.
Kent's a good pilot.
He wanted something that was completely outside of broadcasting.
Not only is Kent a pilot, and it's a great passion of his, but if something needs to get done and we've got trouble somewhere, Kent will go, oh, I'll get there. How are you gonna get there? He'll get on his plane, he'll fly. How do you put a price tag on that?
Civil Air Patrol is a auxiliary wing of the Air Force, and we are all volunteer, and we do search and rescue. And we also participate in training cadets, and we do aerospace education. Those are the 3 missions.
If you look up in that cockpit, and I'm sure everybody does this, you walk onto a plane, you just kind of take a little peek to see who's up there, and do they look like somebody who you're entrusting your life with? That's the guy I'd want in the cockpit.
I'd fly with the guy anytime.
I admire him for that. But yet, I've yet to fly with him. So, one day, Kent, we'll take a flight together.
When he lights up about flying. But more than that, when he talked about being a grandpa.
There's nothing more important to him than his family. And I think that's what also makes him just a special, special guy.
Boy, you just see him light up. That's great, you know, to see that.
He became a grandfather before I did, and so I was able to kind of ask him, like, what's that like? And of course he said, no, it's great, because, you know, you can be a parent again, but as soon as you don't want to be a parent, you can just kind of hand off the kid and you're done. And I thought, okay, that sounds pretty cool. And of course he was right. That's exactly what it's like. It is awesome.
His family's first. Work probably 1A. Family's number 1, work 1A.
It's especially satisfying to see he's been rewarded that way. And obviously his children and grandchildren are rewarded with him.
I know his family. They are Kent.
Great husband, great father, great grandparent.
I know people talk about veterans, about how many years they've been here. Well, that's great, but you know, that just means you've been here. Kent's enthusiasm, I think today, is like the same as it was when I started out with him back in the 1970s. Like, oh, we're gonna have an FM translator for the AM, and here's how that's gonna work, and here's how we're gonna put that together. And nothing is routine. It's new and exciting to Kent. And I hope that's something that all of us sort of learn from, and particularly the generation coming into our business. I hope they really are inspired by that.
His real concern is to make sure we hand over the keys to this place and in good shape and demonstrate we're good stewards and we want the people who follow us to be good stewards.
Congratulations, Kent Aschenbrenner, my colleague, more importantly, my friend, well deserved.
Kent, my heartfelt congratulations to you for a well-earned and deserved acknowledgement of your career. Congratulations, Kent.
Kent, congratulations on receiving this award. Well deserved.
Kent, congratulations on this award. You deserve it. You have done so much for this community and for this station. Congratulations.
Kent, you and I pretty much grew up at Radio City at WTMJ. This honor, the Silver Circle Award, is so well deserved, and what an honor and a privilege it's been to be your partner over these many years. Congratulations.
So everyone, on behalf of George and myself and WTMJ, the Scripps team, and the entire engineering community, let's all welcome this 2018 inductee, well-deserved, Kent Aschenbrenner. Oh, look, the speech is already prepared right here. Thank you, and as an engineer, we're not usually on this side of the microphone, so. Thank you to the Chicago Midwest chapter of the National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences. This is a great honor. Steve, Marcus, and Rebecca, thank you for all that you did to make this happen. To the Mr. Jim Angeli for the nomination, I appreciate that very much. Congratulations to the fellow inductees, Hank, John, Mickey, and Jay, and my presenters, Tony and George. Producer of the video and WTMJ colleague, Jim Collins. I warned Jimmy that I was going to talk a little bit about him. Mr. Collins, you ready? He went to school with my daughters in Franklin, and when he joined the WTMJ staff, he reminded me, although I forgot all about it, that I chaperoned a field trip with him, with my daughters, and we went to see, I think, a submarine up in Manitowoc or something. And on the bus, he just kept talking to me about, oh, you work at WTMJ and this and that, and I don't know how old you were, but he was fascinated that I worked with Mike Goucher, and he was his. So here he is today. There are several people here today that are very special to me. My wife, Barb, my father, John. My parents instilled a solid work ethic and taught us to respect others. Daughter Heidi, her husband, Alan, and my grandson, Luke, who has just discovered his voice, so in case he squeaks out, that's him. Brother Peter and my sister-in-law, Hilda, sister Kim, my college buddies who are behaving themselves, and their spouses, Jerry and Karen Melky, Barry and Diane Tempest, and Tony and Ruth Lucas. Drank a lot of beer together. Recently retired and longtime engineering office assistant, Barb Burrow, with her husband, John. Barb is the one that pretty much kept us in order, make sure things were running. So all of that stuff that you heard up there, that Barb made sure that we followed through on everything we were talking about. And my mentor and co-presenter, George Kasdorf. And I want to thank my WTMJ colleagues that are here today. 42 years ago, in my final semester of college, I drove to WTMJ with my girlfriend to interview for a temporary part-time summer relief engineering position. I think I wore a leisure suit. I was hired along with my fellow college buddy, Paul Stoffel. This was not my first time in the building known as Radio City. In the early 60s, my mom and I modeled clothes for the high-end clothing retailer Robert Hall on the Beulah Donahue show. George, I think you were on the crew. WTMJ was the station of choice for my family. We often went to brunch at my grandparents' home after church, then into the den to watch Bowling with the Champs. As a young boy, I got to turn on the black and white TV, open the wooden doors that revealed the 10-inch picture tube, and follow my grandpa's orders to turn on the journal. Hank, I don't think you were hosting back then, but I'll have to check the dates. To walk the halls and work at Radio City was and continues to be a privilege. The new guy's duties on the news production crew, operating camera, audio, camera control, and if you were good, you were the TD. Never made that. I had a few errors, maybe more than I should. Operating camera and then audio. Not a good start. Between newscasts, I found my way to the engineering shop. I was fascinated by the work performed by the maintenance engineers. As a recent graduate of electronic technology, this is where I wanted to be. George was in the shop during my frequent visits.
I would ask questions and absorb as much practical knowledge from the top maintenance guy who signed the television station on in 1947. George took me under his wing and became my mentor. He eventually turned me loose to attempt a repair. I gathered the test equipment, schematics, and with my 2 years of electronics training, I confidently began troubleshooting. After a couple hours of testing that ended in failure, George kindly and patiently asked me, "Did you check the power supply?" We did not rehearse that. Guess what? In most cases, it was the problem with the power supply. Remember, I had 2 years of training in electronics. I thought I knew what I was doing, but I was chasing rabbits. My mentor, George, patiently taught me to troubleshoot electronic equipment. I finally earned the position of maintenance engineer. I got to work in the shop. Fortunately, George was there to guide me back on track when I chased the rabbits. About 15 years in the shop, I moved on to various positions. Engineer in charge, assistant chief engineer, and then director of engineering. In these roles, I didn't fix the equipment, but moved on to supervising studio and remote crews, including Bowling with Champs, remotes, and leading installation projects. The lessons learned from George were critical in my new responsibilities and what I do today: problem solving. Look for the obvious solutions first. Check the power supplies. Don't chase rabbits. Thank you, George. I would not be standing here today without the love and support of my wife. She has been with me from the beginning, my girlfriend who accompanied me to the interview. You were always there so that I could practice my craft. 40 years ago today, I said I do, and you did too.